What's goody, y'all? It's Goody, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Gabbing with Goody Gabor. You can like, subscribe, and comment right here at Goody Gabor Gabs. You can also follow me on IG, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at Goody Gabor. I appreciate your attendance. Now let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of SWV and Xscape, Queens of R&B. This would be Season 1, Episode 5. And I'm going to be honest with you. It gives me anxiety to watch the dissolve of the two groups, the relationships between the sisters. It just gives me anxiety. The show opens with Tamika giving Latasha a call saying, hey, it's been long enough. We need to speak to each other and get our sisterhood back. Tasha agrees and they set up for Tamika to go visit Tasha at the studio. We then get to see the show do, because in this part of the show, they are doing the visits or that part of the show where they show us what the group members are doing individually. Coco is in her closet. She's been a whirlwind and she is, she's making her son laugh because he's calling her Hurricane Coco. He's like, Hurricane Coco's back in the building. She needs help with her closet. Taj is trying to keep things sexy as she's on the road between her and her husband, Eddie. She starts doing the striptease that we could have done without. And he tells her that their son is there. So whoops, she turns the camera off. We get to see Tiny, Eris, and Zanique, who's Tiny's eldest daughter. And, first of all, again, I love Eris. Eris is the best to me. I think she's talented. I think she's beautiful. But she is doing what kids do. She is basically using her slime on the counter. She's sitting on the counter. I love the fact that Tiny was like, girl, what you doing up there on my counter? In any event, Zanique is there visiting her family. Then we flash back to Tamika and Latasha. Tamika comes to the studio and, she says, hey, to her sister. Rocky, her sister's husband, tries to talk to her and she pays him dust. She asks as if he hasn't said a word. And that's interesting to me because, it's just odd. He took it in stride. He cleared the room. Latasha and Tamika start talking. Latasha's like, what happened here? And although the goal is to have a resolve, the two never really spoke about anything. Latasha kept saying, hey, we both have issues. Now, if I have an issue with someone and I'm coming to them to hold myself accountable, them telling me about how I should also be holding myself accountable is a moot point. And on top of that, it's irritating. But that's what Latasha was doing. And Tamika was making sure Tasha understood that she visited their mother and apologized for cursing in their mother's house. Now, the elders get on my nerves with this. It was a heated moment. She didn't come in cursing like a sailor just because. But the elders have a tendency to want to hold the fact that they are the elders over your head in a way that is disrespectful to you. It's like they will not be disrespected, but they will definitely disrespect you. But Tamika's purpose was to show Latasha, hey, I have done what you wanted me to do. I apologize to mom. Latasha seemed cold, but they did. I think this was edited because a lot of nothing was said, but both sisters were crying or seemingly crying. In the end, they decided they were going to mend fences, make amends, get their sisterhood together again. In our next scene, the ladies get together to pick dancers for the show that they don't know if it's going to happen or not, but they don't have the luxury of not getting things in order because it's a very short window. So they're getting dancers. Everyone shows up but Candy, who had a prior engagement. And it's a good time. The dancers look good. They're making their selections. Taj gets up and she does the worm. I absolutely adore Taj's energy. They had a discussion about who's the best dancer from each group. Taj would be the best dancer from SWV, and Lily will hold the crown as not the best dancer from from SWV. In Xscape, Candy is the worst dancer. Tamika says that she's the best dancer, but those who have seen them perform knows that Tiny is a little bit better than Tamika, but okay, it's all in good fun. Now, this is the part that I start to hate because it speaks to women not being able to work together. And we already know that girl groups, just the group in and of itself, can have problematic dynamics. However, in this scene, Taj is letting Coco and Lily know about a conversation she had with Tamika. Now, the ladies are going out to lunch. It looks like lunch. Coco is doing hookah. Lily and Taj are surprised. I'm not. They're asking Lily about her erotica book, and she's saying it's difficult. Taj tells her to watch or read 50 Shades of Grey. And I think that says a lot because 50 Shades of Grey is horrible. Like, my belief is that it started out as fan fiction for Twilight. So that's, for me, how corny it is, but whatever. But again, this speaks to, for me, places where collaboration could benefit everyone. Because in real time, like today, Candy has invited Lily to have discussions on candy-coated nights. That would play well with her desire to enter the adult literature genre, but she refuses to do it, rooted in what I believe is pride and ego. In any event, going back to the show, Taj lets Lily and Coco know that when she was speaking to Tamika told her that the reason why Xscape felt they should close the show, do the last song, or maybe even headline is because based on Candy and Tiny's side hustles, the things they do outside of music, they have millions and millions of followers. And those millions of followers would help get people to come to the show. For whatever reason, this offends SWV, and it shouldn't. But I get it. SWV, they are women of a certain age. Not real, they'll dabble with social media, but they don't do it from the perspective of business. So Influencer 101 dictates that when you do have a strong following, 10% of that following will support you. So 10% of 7 million, that kind of support is desired, needed, necessary. But for whatever reason, it makes SWV feel like Xscape is telling them they're irrelevant. From my perspective, it seems that the ladies who handle business, that would be Tiny and Candy, are having analytical discussions, and the ladies who are passionate about singing and singing alone, that would be SWV, are having emotional discussions. And it makes no sense to me. Because Taj is the sweetest of the trio, Coco's like, you ain't let them punk you, right? And Taj is like, no, I didn't let her punk me. And Coco's like, did you tell Tamika that Candy and Tiny's asses are just for her to kiss? And Taj is like, no, I didn't say that. But again, I am an analytical person. I believe in numbers. I believe in crunching those numbers and seeing what happens. I believe in just thinking before even processing my feelings. That's what I believe in. The ladies of SWV are not doing that, and I think that that's the beginning of a lot of the friction that the two groups have with each other today. I jumped the gun a bit earlier talking about Zanique's visit with Tiny and Eris. So right about now, Zanique visits Tiny and Eris, and Zanique and Tiny have a great relationship. It's a great mother-daughter relationship. My son is 26, and I often tell him I'm not in mommy mode anymore. I'm in mentor mode. So I get that vibe from Tiny and Zanique. In any event, Tiny's catching Zanique up on what's been going on. She let her know that, Latasha did come to a rehearsal. However, Latasha has been showing her their ass, and that, she says in her confessional that when Candy agreed to come back, Candy said to her, listen, I'm going to come back, and if I put this on my agenda and I give this my all, how can you promise me that Latasha is not going to do what she normally does, use us while she can, and then treat us like crap once she feels like she doesn't need us anymore? And Tiny assured Candy that wouldn't happen. And in her confessional, Tiny's like, yeah, it's happening. So, Zanique and Tiny discuss, the fact that they had a show, the fact that Latasha couldn't show up, and Tamika stepped up. And Tamika has this very deep and rich voice, so I dig it. Funky Deneva said that Latasha should have never let these girls know that they could do the show without her, because they know that now. And, Tiny hints to Zanique that if they have to go without her, they're fitting to go without her. They briefly touch on the SWV thing. Zanique says that, maybe Xscape should open for SWV, but, Tiny disagrees. Next, we get into Lily taking her grand doggy down to the groomers, and she's talking to her sister who used to take care of her children while she was on the road. She reflects on the reality that being an entertainer kept her away from her children, and is bittersweet for her because she does have regrets, which is interesting because I may or may not have said this in the past, but I was an MC, and I didn't sign a lot of contracts because I was also a student who was going to be pre-law, so I knew how to read a contract. But bigger than that, I was in a position where I was being sent on a tour, and my son was like 4 years old, 4 or 5. I was being sent on a tour, and I would be gone for weeks, and I had to really sit with myself and ask the question, what kind of mom do I want to be? Do I want to be the kind of mom who phones it in? And to be clear, I've always had a village, a very large village. His father, his father's family, my parents, my family. My son would have been fine, but I wanted to be, and don't laugh, y'all, I wanted to be like a June Cleaver. So I did this whole thing where I would cook, and I would try to have cookies ready for him, even though I wouldn't be home when he got home from school. I wanted him to have cookies and stuff. So that was my image of what I wanted my motherhood to look like. So when I was faced with the opportunity to go on tour for weeks, I opted to not do it. I mean, there were other reasons why I didn't continue pursuing my career. As a woman, because I was around the same time as SWV and Xscape, and I was an MC, not a singer. But as a woman in hip hop, it was a caustic environment for women, but parenting is what really took me out the game. When I married all the rest of that stuff with the fact that I wouldn't be a present parent, I didn't want to do it. So, she gets into that. And I understand that from the perspective of a mother. In any event, she starts talking about how she met with Tiny and they were talking about wardrobe. Now, SWV and Xscape have two different approaches to what it looks like on stage. SWV, again, women of a certain age from a certain time period with a certain sound, they like to keep it historic, so to speak. They will wear their Doc Martens and their jerseys and their fitted hats because that was the vibe of the time and it makes sense for their music. So they do a very 1990s fly around the way girl show. Xscape does something a little more sexy, And in a way I understand it makes sense because, the ladies of Xscape were called very unsexy by hip hop and by the industry when they were younger. So it would make sense to me that on top of being grown ass women and wanting to be more sexually appealing, it makes sense to me that they have something to prove. In any event, Lily, jokes that she wouldn't be caught dead. Or maybe she'd have to be dead in order to be put in an Xscape fit. She says they were like Apollonia 6. And yes, they do have a very sexy stage show, but there's nothing wrong with that. Next, we have Coco, Candy, and Steven, the Pro Tools / graphics individual, meeting to go over the set list. And it doesn't take long for Coco to get in her bag, whereby she is like, why is Steven here? But she doesn't say it to them. She says it in her confessional. Isn't he a graphics guy? And basically, she is showing resistance to the set list that they had agreed upon. She wants the show to end with weak. Candy says that they want to end with understanding. She thinks that understanding would be too slow, and it's apparent that this is an ego thing. From SWV's perspective, they are tired of feeling like they're being called irrelevant. From an Xscape perspective, they are feeling like they give, but they're not receiving anything in return. On top of that, Coco's being really nasty to Steven, and Candy's like, you know what? This is the Coco that is known. This is who we know. Again, this component of the show, of the situation, gives me anxiety. Women can work together. Women have the capability of working together if ego is not at play. And in this situation, in this instance, it's ego, it's pride, and it's ugly. I hate it. I hate this for them. Candy and Tiny are on their way to meet with the rest of the ladies. That would include all of Xscape and all of SWV. They're meeting with the tailor. Let's call him a tailor. In order to have a discussion on the outfits. Tiny mentions the difference between the way Xscape dresses and the way SWV dresses. And most people saw that as shade, but it wasn't shade. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. In this discussion, as they're headed over, Candy lets Tiny know that she had the discussion with Coco, and SWV wants to close the show with Weak because they believe it was a bigger song. Now, it was a bigger song. However, from the Xscape perspective, they are co-headlining. They didn't want to co-headline. SWV goes first. And now SWV wants to go last. They're trying to figure out where they have in. Tamika, also known as Tiny. Tiny's like, look, if they can't budge on that, we ain't finna have a show. Which to me is an indicator that even though Candy is the mouthpiece for the group often, she's not the only one who has a say. I think, generally speaking, the group makes decisions as a group. That's Xscape. In their own car, Coco and Taj are having a discussion. Jalen's with them. It has been revealed that Jalen's going back to school, so kudos to that. I love that for him because it gives him a plan B when he works on his music. Again, I applaud that. Then they get to talking about the outfits and hoping that the tailor is able to bring to life outfits that fit their personality. Then Coco tells Taj about her conversation with Steven and Candy and basically is like, you know, when a bitch tell you that she don't mean any disrespect, the next thing she's about to do is be disrespectful. Bottom line, they feel like it's disrespect for Xscape to even want to close the show out. And, you know, again, I just think it's a lot of ego. These are the parts of the show that have not been enjoyable for me because I 100% wanted to see these two groups. Mind you, SWV is my favorite of the two overall. I wanted to see these two groups get together and really do something impactful for the culture. And they can't seem to get it right. I mean, even now, things are going left on a daily basis. I'm tired. They all wearing me out. But yeah, ego. Everyone comes together down to the tailor's office. And yes, the tailor does do stripper garments. We'll just put that out there. And when Lily shows up, she's like, oh, this looks like a playground for strippers. And that's correct. But what the tailor does upon everyone sitting down is he hands everyone an idea of the sketches he has for their outfits based on things that he's researched they've worn before. And he asks them what they want. Candy says she wants to be snatched and pulled, or rather snatched and sitting pretty. Tiny wants to be sexy. You know, Taj says that, you know, she just wants to be comfortable. We get that. What I don't understand is them acting as if someone who makes stripper gear can't make outfits. Clearly, he's made outfits because he made outfits for the 2017 run that Xscape had. But again, this is just like the talk down. You know, he measures everyone out, and then the girls get to talking about where they disagree. They disagree on who's going to close out the show. Coco feels like Xscape's trying to be slick because they want to look like they were the headliners. Tiny's getting frustrated because she's like, look, we both want the same thing. Ain't nobody budging. SWV's like, nobody really care. Nobody really care. Candy's like, if you don't care, then what are we arguing about? Lily's like, I'm not going to be around anybody who's trying to disrespect me and my group and say that we're irrelevant based on pianos in the dressing room and followers. It's madness. But it's madness rooted in ego. And Coco lets us know that ego can get you fucked up. There's that. And then there's this weird tension between Tamika and Latasha. And it's coming from Tamika. And that's interesting because Tamika was interested in them getting back on the good foot. But, she's throwing a bit of shade like, oh, Miss Diana Ross, every time we do shows, she shows up different now. And, you can tell there's a little bit of tension, which we get to in the next scene. The passive-aggressive tension between Tamika and Latasha, coming from Tamika to Latasha, starts making sense in this last scene. In the last scene, there's an escape meeting that they all called. And once everyone is there and everyone's sitting, Tiny's like, so who wants to start? And Latasha, not knowing what's going on, is like, start about what? And Tiny, trying to be the ever-present mediator, is like, we have business to discuss. But Tamika's like, look, I spoke to a promoter and he let me know some things that was not good. And Candy was like, yeah, the promoter lets us know that there have been kickbacks from him to your husband. Basically, if Tamika and Rocky were able to get all 4 escape girls to perform, then they would get extra money from this particular promoter. Also of note, the promoter and Rocky fell out real bad. And, Latasha, one of the reasons she doesn't rock with her group, or one of the reasons she told us she didn't rock with her group months ago, was because they still deal for promoter who threatened her husband. She neglected to say that it was a money dispute over kickbacks and that her husband threatened him first. Tasha acts like she already knows that it's not true. Ain't nobody getting no kickbacks. And the girls are like, no. Tamika pulls out a folder. She gives everyone the same photocopy. She's like, this is a business meeting today. Everyone gets a photocopy and they start looking at the text. Latasha's like, you gonna believe text messages? And Candy's like, these are text messages from an iPhone. This is your husband's number. Tiny's not saying much because, again, ever-present mediator. Tamika's on fire. She's like, yo, your husband is accepting kickbacks. Latasha's like, ain't nobody accepting kickbacks. She then goes to call her husband. And that's where we leave off. It makes sense to a lot of them now. And Tiny, the thing that Tiny does say is, if anyone is getting money, we all need to know about it. Now, I take that to mean that they all bring opportunities to the table. And there are times when if one brings an opportunity to the table, they all get bread, but someone gets a finder's fee. But they all know about it. In this instance, that was not the case. And I guess things are starting to click for Tiny because Candy wasn't doing the group. And she didn't want to. She was busy. We see Candy all over the place. She was busy. Latasha insisted that Candy come back so that they could be a group of 4 again. It's now making sense to Tiny because, well, Candy and Latasha don't even get along for this amount of trying to bring her back. Latasha calls Rocky on speakerphone and, again, this is where the show leaves off. I am one of 5 girls in my family. It is like I was raised in a girl group. I have an older sister I do not speak to, and I have no intentions of speaking to her. I did not start that. when there are girls, because that's what we were called, the girls, and yes, we did sing at a point in time, but that's neither here nor there. When you do have that much feminine energy, there is a lot that goes on. This has been triggering for me because, older sisters can be something else. Again, this gives me anxiety. I hate it. I hate the way the show is going, the direction it's taking for SWV and Xscape. I hate the dissolve between Latasha and Tamika. I hate seeing how Latasha has used the fact that she's older than the rest of the group to be the leader of the girls. And I hate the fact that she thinks that can stick, even though everyone's a grown-ass woman. One more episode to go. Yes, this is a very late review, but again, I have dragged my feet getting here because I am tired and I am triggered. I'll see y'all tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be more because there's always more. I'm only reviewing the show. Outside of the show, there's just more. We are inundated with drama. Left, front, center, every angle that the drama can come from, it's coming. And it's disheartening. But I'll be back for the last episode review. Hopefully I'll do it in a more timely fashion. Maybe I'll get to it Sunday as soon as it happens. Bye. That's what's goody. That was goody. Thanks for watching. Catch y'all later.